Unit 5, Prose 5 at Dotheboys Hall by Charles Dickens. About the author. Charles Dickens, 1812 to 1870, was one of the most celebrated writers in 19th century Britain. His novels like David Copperfield and Oliver Twist are based on his own childhood experiences. His other major works are Great Expectations, Bleak House, and A Tale of Two Cities. His work is notable for its realism, social criticism, and comedy. This is about the author. Here, the story starts. Before that, just let us know about the characters in this story. Here, the story is about a boarding school and about the headmaster and his wife and how they are treating the people, students at the school. Okay, let us read first. Have you ever studied in a boarding school or no? Someone who has. This extract is taken from Dickens' novel Nicholas Nickleby about a young man's struggles to support himself and his family after his father's death. When Nicholas starts a job at a boarding school called Dotheboys, he is taken aback by the way the students are treated by the headmaster, Wackford Squires, and his wife. Okay, here anybody is having experience that studied in a boarding school. That means staying in the school hostel and going to school in the same school. Or if you know anyone, just ask them. Or if you have your own experience, okay. Otherwise, if you don't know, if someone who has that experience, you can just talk to them. Here, this story taken from the novel Dickens. Okay, here Nicholas Nickleby about a young man's struggles. Why he is struggling? He has to get income to support himself and his family because his father was dead. Here he got a job in a boarding school called the boarding school name to the boys. And here headmaster how treated the students in the hostel and the headmaster name Wackford Squires and his missus. Okay, now headmaster just Mr. Squire. He came and woke up Nickleby. Past 7, Nickleby, said Mr. Squires, and the first cold morning after Nicholas' arrival at Dotheboys Hall. Come, tremble up. The pump's frozen. You can't wash yourself this morning. So you must be happy giving yourself a dry polish till we break the ice in the well and can get a bucketful out for the boys. Here, Mr. Squire came to Nickleby's room, and asked him to wake up. And he asked him to help him because the bumps are frozen. And he was telling that he can't take bath because the water became ice. Okay, and just he called him to break the ice where the well was frozen. And if we are doing that work, they may get a bucket full of water for them and boys. Nicholas put on his clothes and was about to leave when Mr. Squires came into the room. She wore her nightclothes and an ancient beaver bonnet. Here, beaver bonnet means cap lined with beaver fur. Okay, as soon as Nicholas just about to leave the room, Mrs. Squire entered the room. And how she was here, how the author describes her, she wore her nightclothes and an ancient beaver bonnet. Okay, I can't find the school spoon anywhere. and it's brimstone morning today, she complained. Okay, she entered. As soon as she entered, she was asking for a school spoon. She was searching everywhere, but she couldn't find that spoon. What is the special of that school spoon? Because why they're asking? Because that day it was brimstone. That means they are just giving some medicine to the kids, children, those who are staying in the boarding school. And we purify the boy's blood with it now and then, Nickelby Squires explained. Okay. Anyway, Mrs. Squire was searching for the spoon and she was telling that it is brimstone morning, and Nickelby couldn't understand what she was telling. So, Mr. Squire explained uh, that brimstone means what? Okay, it's a medicine to purify the boy's blood now and then. Okay, so those who are staying in the boarding school, they used to give brimstone medicine to the kids to purify the blood. And here, brimstone and Trackles was a strong tasting tonic made of sulfur and molasses. In Victorian times, it was given to children a few times a week in the morning to prevent common ailments like cough, colds, and stomach problems. What were they have given in the earlier stages? To prevent the kids from common ailments like cough, colds, and stomach problems. Now, let me tell you plainly, we don't do it just for good of it, Mrs. Squire said. They have brimstone and trestles because they would always be ailing and giving a world of trouble if they didn't have something by the way of medicine. Also, it reduces their appetite and is cheaper than breakfast and dinner. So it does them good and as good at the same time. So here, Mrs. Squires just explaining again why they are giving this brimstone. This is good for kids. Also, if they are taking that, they'll not get problems like basic problems. It's like a medicine. Also, she's giving another reason they'll not get appetite, and this is cheaper than the food what they are providing to them, even though their parents are paying for them for staying in that hostel, but still they are doing this. They are not providing food properly, instead they are giving this medicine now and then. So she felt that it is good for them as well, for the owners, headmaster, and his wife. As Nicholas digests this information, Mrs. Squires went back to looking for the spoon in the closet, with Mr. Squires helping. After a great deal of fruitless rummaging, a boarder named Smike was called in. Mr. Squires boxed his ears and asked him about the spoon. "You might have it in your pocket, ma'am," Smike stuttered. They were searching for the school spoon, right? Yes. Now, after hearing this information that giving brimstone medicine to the kids, Nicholas somewhat he just digested because that was his first day just working in the school. Just he went with Mr. Squires to see the hostel, that school, and getting this information, he was not happy at all. But still, he has to work, he has to earn, so he didn't take any action against them. Now, they were looking for that school spoon in the cupboard, but there they couldn't find it. Then later, there was a boarder named Smike. There was a boy named Smike, and he was called by Mr. Squire. And Squire gave boxed his ears, means here, hit him on the side of the head, and asked him about the spoon. Okay, now what is their assumption? The boy Smike might be taken this spoon, And when they asked, the boy given reply that you might have it in your pocket, ma'am. Smike stuttered. Stuttered means nervous or fear. Okay. Talked in a broken words out of nervousness or fear. Here he gave reply that Mrs. Squire has that school spoon. This indeed turned out to be the case. But since Mr. Squires had said earlier that she didn't have it, Smike got another box on the ear for contradicting his mistress. Here, contradicting means disagreeing. Okay, already she said she was searching for that spoon, but the boy said the spoon might be with her. So, Mr. Squire got angry. He gave another hit on his box on the ear, hit on the ear of Smike. Why? He is telling that the spoon might be with her because he had an earlier experience. Otherwise, he knows that she might be kept somewhere and searching for that. So he said, as Mike said, the spoon might be with her. But Mr. Squire got angry and gave a box on the ear of Smike. And you'll get a sound thrashing, boy, if you aren't more respectful in future, she said before going her way. She is more than a mother to them, said Squires, admiringly. She does things for the boys, Nickelby, the most mothers wouldn't do for their own sons. Here again, Mr. Squires giving information about his wife to Nickelby. What he was telling, she is taking care the kids, children, those who are staying in the boarding school, and she is taking care of them more than their own mothers. I should think not, sir, answered Nicholas, as he followed Squires across a yard to the schoolroom. Now they reached to the yard to the schoolroom, and there said the schoolmaster, as they stepped into a bare and dirty room, this is our shop. And here they reached a room, and Mr. Squires showed this is our shop. Here, literary terms. This is an example of irony. Mrs. Squire's cruel behavior towards the boys in the exact opposite of a mother's care. Nichols' reply is also ironical. He means that most mothers would not, in fact, treat their children in the same manner as Mrs. Squires. So here, Mr. Squire said Mrs. Squire is taking care of the kids very nicely, but entirely her character was different. She was a very cruel behavior towards the boys. Okay, fine. Next, Nichols looked around with dismay at the windows, stopped up with old copybooks and papers, the old rickety desk and discolored walls, but it was looking at the peoples dressed in odd, ill-fitting clothes that his hopes about the establishment dimmed. They were pale and haggard faces, boys of stunned growth, and others whose thin legs would hardly bear their stooping bodies. They were faces They were faces that told of young lives which from childhood had borne cruelty and neglect. These faces would have been handsome but were darkened with the scowl of sullen, dogged suffering. Okay, once they entered their uh, room, there many boys were there, and how they were the room not at all good. It was very old, the windows are broken and discolored tables, walls, everything, it was not at all good. And once Nickelby saw those people, how they were looking, they dressed in odd ill-fitting clothes. Okay, and they were very dull and very lean. That means those people did not get proper care, proper food. That is the thing Nickelby could understand after seeing them. Mr. Squires stood at the desk with a large basin of brimstone and trestle. Using an enormous wooden spoon, she served this to each boy, who gulped it down in one go, under fear of punishment. After everyone had been trazzled, Smike shuffled out with a basin. Merger breakfast followed, compressing small bowls of brown porridge eaten with a mixture minute wedge of bread. Nichols too had this along with a slice of bread and butter given to him by virtue of his position as a teacher. Here, that was the brimstone morning. Yes, Mrs. Squire was telling. That was now is happening in the a large basin. The brimstone kept, and the students one by one they were just given this medicine. And with the fear, the children just ate that as early as possible. If they are not eating that, definitely they'll get punishment. With that fear, under that fear, that just whatever Mrs. Squire gave, simply they ate. After everyone had been trazzled, Smike shuffled out with the basin. And now Nicholas also given a slice of bread and butter that he was getting because he had a position as a teacher in that boarding school. Then Squires made his way to his desk for the first class. Okay, now the children just they were given medicine. After that, they went to the classroom. Now, Mr. Squire started taking class. The way how he has taken the class, we'll see now. This is the class in English, spelling, and philosophy. Nickelby, he said, beckoning Nicholas to stand beside him. Now then, where is the first boy? Okay, now they enter the class. Now this is the English spelling class and philosophy. Okay, just he is giving explanation to Nickelby. And now Mr. Squire called the first boy. Please, sir, said one helpless people. He is cleaning the back parlor window. What he was doing? He was cleaning the window. So he is. To be sure, replied Squires. We follow the practical mode of teaching, Nickelby. And he is giving explanation. We are teaching them in practical way. How just whatever the word they are telling, the same work the children has to do. Now he is telling clean, the word clean. 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 Verb to make bright. Okay. Next Win. Sorry. Win. Win. Der. Der. Winter. Yeah. Casement. Here he wanted to mention window, but he is giving wrong spelling here. When the boy knows this out of a book, he goes and does it. That means what they have to do? Clean a window. That means they have to go and clean the window. And next, where's the second boy? Please, sir, he is weeding the garden. So he is, said Squires. B-O-T, bot, T-I-N, tin, botin, N-E-Y, N-E, noun, a knowledge of plants. Here, Mr. Squire wanted to say botany. He is giving entirely wrong spelling for this word. When he has learned that botany means a knowledge of plants, he goes and gets to know that's our system. Nickelby. Third boy. What's a horse? Now he is giving work to third boy. What is the work? That means he has given. He is asking the question. What's a horse? So definitely we know he is going to give work later to the horse. And the third boy replied, a beast, sir. And so it is, said Squires. A horse is a quadruped, and quadruped's Latin for beast. As everybody who understands grammar knows. As you are perfect in grammar, go and look after my horse and rub him down well, or I'll rub you down. The rest of the class go and draw water till somebody tells you to stop, for it's washing day tomorrow. Here, food for thought. The words winter and botany stand for window and botany. Here you can see correct spelling. There, Mr. Square gave wrong spelling. So for window, he has given spelling like Winder, and for botany, Bottiney. So the correct spelling is Window window and botany Botany. So with this we can come to know definitely they are not teaching, they are not caring, they are not treating the students properly. The way Squires teaches the incorrect spelling of the words shows that he is poorly educated himself. So the deficiencies of Squires' teaching methods were made up of for by lavishing punishments. Nicholas had to stand by every day and see the unfortunate people of Dotheboys Hall punished for mistakes they did not make, knowing that he could do nothing to help them. The plight of one people in particular filled Nicholas with pity. It was Smike, being older than the others, he had suffered many more years of ill treatment. Here, literary term, the word, this is a pun. To rub down. The earlier page you have seen, to rub down. A horse means to clean and groom it. But when Mr. Squires mentioned the boy getting a rub down, it means that he would get a beating. Okay, that means if the boy is not taking care of the horse properly, he will get beating from Mr. Squires. That is what he was telling using the word like a rub down. The word he used, rub down. Okay, now the deficiency of Squire's teaching methods were made up for by lavishing punishments. Okay, the teaching method why he is using to punish the students, and there the boy who Smike, he was older than others and getting ill treatment for many years. That means he is staying there for many years. Since he needed the job, Nicholas tolerated the coarse language of Squires, the insults of Mrs. Squires, who declared that the new teacher was proud, haughty, with his nose in the air. Here, nose in the air means this idiom means the same as head in the air. It suggests that the person is proud and looks down upon others. But Nicholas was not like that, but simply Mrs. Squire said like that. And here Nicholas could see all these things, but he couldn't take any step against the headmaster. That means Mr. Squire and Mrs. Squire, because he need job. He has to take care of his family. Father was not there. Father died, so he has to earn. He couldn't quit the job. He couldn't quit the job also. So just he tolerated everything. One evening after lessons, Nicholas had been left with the boys in the chilly schoolroom. Supper was already done, with a meal of bread and cheese served shortly after dark. Nicholas sat down by a small stove in a corner of the room, though he often thought of quitting. For the time being, he had decided to stay. He hoped that by remaining, he might do some good for the poor students. So, here, just one evening after the school time, he just had a time with the boys in the hostel in the chilly schoolroom, and already supper was provided, and after that a meal of bread and cheese what have served, bread and cheese served for them. And he noticed the upturned face of Smike, who was on his knees before the stove, picking up a few stray cinders from the hearth and putting them on the fire. Realizing that he was observed, Smike shrank back as if expecting a blow. You don't have to be afraid of me, said Nicholas kindly. Are you cold? Just here, he had a conversation with the boy Smike and he asked, are you cold? Then the boy said, No. You are shivering? I'm not cold, replied Smike quickly. I'm used to it. That means it was cold, but in the earlier stages they didn't get any help from anybody. With that cold, with that shivering only, they were managing that situation. So the boy said, This is used to it for me like that. And he was so obviously afraid of angering his teacher and looked so timid and broken spirited that Nicholas could not help ex- exclaiming, Poor fellow. If Nicholas had hit Smike instead, he would have slunk away without a word. But at the slightest hint of kindness, the boy could not hold back his tears. Now he started just started talking to Smike, and he shown kindness to the boy Smike. So immediately he started crying. He just got tears from his eyes. Hush, hold your tears, said Nicholas, laying his hand on Smike's shoulder, because no one spoke to him like Nicholas, kindly, politely. So once he got these words from Nichols boy, just he started crying. I have lost so many of my friends here since I was a child, cried Smike. They were younger than the youngest boys here now, and there is no hope for me. There is always hope, said Nicholas. He did not know what else to say. Do you remember the boy who died here? I was not here, said Nicholas gently, but what of him? Here, once Smike got chance to talk to Nicholas, just he started just sharing his experience, bad experience in this boarding school. Just he was telling he lost so many friends in the hostel because they died, because of punishment, because of ill treatment, because of not giving food properly. That is the reason many of his friends died, and now he also does not have any hope for living here for a long time. And he was asking uh, to Nicholas, do you remember the boy who died here? That time Nicholas was not there, so he was not aware of that incident, but he was asking, but what of him? He was asking that what was the incident. I was with him at night, replied the youth, and when it was all silent, he cried no more for friends. He wished to come and sit with him. He began to see faces from home around his bed. He said they smiled and talked to him. The bell rang for a bit at that moment. Hearing the sound, Smike fell silent again and crept away as if to avoid being noticed. It was with a heavy heart that Nicholas went to bed that night. But soon there came a day when Smike, unable to face the the squire's torment any longer, ran away. He was found and brought back within 24 hours, haggard, wet, and covered in mud. What happened is, when he was telling his story, one day he couldn't manage the situation, that means getting punishment from the school headmaster and Mrs. Squire. Just he escaped from the school, but within 24 hours they got the boy Smike, and he was giving punishment to him. The work Smike did would have cost the school 10 or 12 shillings a week in wages. Squires, who made severe example of all runaways, decided to punish Smike harshly. Here, a shilling was a coin used in Britain until the 1970s. 1 shilling was equal to 1/20th of a pound. So here, Smike escaped from the school. Again, they got back him, and Mr. Squire started giving punishment. Mr. Squire thought that the punishment should be example for those who are running away from the school. So he decided to give severe punishment to Smike. At the first blow, Smike uttered a shriek of pain, and Nicholas started up from his desk and cried, "Stop! Touch that boy at your prill." Here, prill means at one's own. Prill. This idiom means at one's own risk and is used as a warning. I will not stand by and see it down. See it done. So now, these many days, Nicholas did not ask anything. Whatever Mr. Squires and Mrs. Squires gave punishment, just simply he was watching, because he has to work, he has to earn money to manage his life and his family. But now, when they were giving punishment to Smike, just he asked Mr. Squire to stop giving punishment, and he decided to just stand against the headmaster, Mr. Squire and Mrs. Squire. He had scarcely spoken when Squire's enrage struck him across the face with his cane. All Nicholas' rage and scorn broke loose. Then he was angry as much for Squire's cruelty towards his wards as for what that man had done to him. He sprang upon the schoolmaster, snatched this can from him, and turned his fury upon the man until he roared for mercy. Now, here what happened? Mr. Squire started beating, and what he had with him, just cane, that stick, with that just he started beating. Then immediately Nicholas went and then just got this stick back, and whatever punishment earlier given to the kids, everything he just recalled and started giving punishment to Mr. Squire till he asked sorry for it. Mrs. Squires, with many shakes for help, hung on to the tail of her husband's coat and tried to drag him away, but to no avail. Eventually, Squires lay sprawled on the ground, stunned. What happened? They didn't expect that Nicholas will react like this, but Mrs. Squire also came and helped her husband, to just not getting punishment from Nicholas, but it was helpless. Nicholas left the room, packed up his few clothes in a small leather valise, marched out by the front door, and struck for the road for London. Here, what happens finally? Nicholas just left the job and just he started going somewhere else, because these many days he just watching everything, kept quiet because he has to earn money. and but finally the children, they were suffering a lot. He couldn't manage when the boy's Mike was getting punishment for not doing any mistakes, but Mr. Squire and Mrs. Squire giving punishment, and finally he got angry. Just he gave punishment to those people, but in future definitely then never do this mistake, we hope. Thank you.